Thank you so much for volunteering to be a DataJam judge. We really appreciate the time and effort you're willing to put into helping young people learn data science. Over the past year, the DataJam has refined our judging system, and we have a new judging rubric and an online judging form. In this brief introduction, I'm going to introduce you to both. First, let's look at the judging form. You will be given a link that will open a page that looks like this. And then there are buttons to click on for either the presentation judging form or the poster judging form. For our demonstration today, we're going to click on the poster judging form. At the top of the form, you'll see that you need to fill in information about yourself and information about the team you are judging. Each form is for a single team. Usually, a judge is given multiple teams to evaluate, and in that case, you may want to open multiple forms in separate browser windows. This will allow you to judge all of the teams you have to judge, but be able to go back before you submit the forms and tweak things if there are any adjustments you feel you need to make. Underneath the team information, the evaluation criteria are listed. For each criteria, you will see that there are several questions, and for each question, you score on a 0 to 100 scale, with the slider initially set at 50. The DataJam considers 50 to be the equivalent of a B grade. I have on the screen a poster that we will look at together in this video. This team states their research question right at the top of the poster. What they are looking at is how surrounding environmental properties impact the quality of education in public high schools, looking both at air and water quality in Pennsylvania counties and at the Pennsylvania Keystone Stores, which is a state assessment exam that Pennsylvania uses for high school students. Their hypothesis, listed right below their research question, is that areas that have higher quality environment will have increased quality education reflected by higher scores. The data sets that they will lose are listed here. They have a data set from the state of Pennsylvania for test scores, and they have air and water quality measures from the EPA and the USGS. However, we notice that right underneath these that they have challenges, and one of their challenges was that they only had air quality index data from 37 of 67 counties in Pennsylvania because the EPA does not record these measures in rural counties. Let's look at the first criteria on the judging form. Form a research question based on relevant data. And the first question is it meaningful to the stakeholders? These are high school students, and they're clearly concerned about the quality of education in their high school and the impact of the environment on their education. So it is clearly meaningful. However, they didn't consider other factors that would be meaningful and have an impact on their education, such as the quality of the teachers or the budget of the school district. So we're going to slide this over to a 70. It's meaningful, but they didn't consider all the factors they might. The next question is it specific and can it be answered with data analysis? The question is clearly yes. And we're going to move the slider to 90. The DataJam recommends that you use 90 as a top score, and this will give you some wiggle room so that after you finish judging everything that you're going to judge, if you want to go back and tweak this, you have some wiggle room. We can also judge the next criteria: uncover and use appropriate data sources. The first question is the data set from a reliable source? And the answer is clearly yes. So we're going to move the slider to 90. The next question is the sample size large enough to answer the question? And you'll recall that they only had air quality data for 37 of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania. And they only had one measure for the year they were looking at for each parameter. And clearly, it would be more meaningful to have measures over time. So we're going to leave this marker at 50. The third question is, are the variables in the data set directly relevant to answering the question? The answer is yes, they are relevant to answering the question. However, it would be better to have multiple variables over multiple measures over the course of the year for each variable. So we'll move this slider to 70. Looking back at the poster, we see that the team used linear regression to look at the relationship between the environmental factors and the exam scores. And if we look here, we see graphs from each regression analysis. The graphs are very clear, and it is also clear that they did not see a relationship between any of the environmental factors and the test scores. Looking back at the judging criteria, question 3A is sophistication of the analysis. Now, a linear regression is clearly very appropriate for looking at the relationship between two variables, but they were interested in how multiple factors affect the test scores, and they did simple linear regressions, not a multi-factor linear regression. We click on the question mark here to learn a little bit more about how to score this. And we see that 0 is for no analyses, 25 is very basic descriptive analyses, 50 is some intermediate analyses, 75 advanced analysis is attempted, and 100 is highly sophisticated and creative analysis. This appears to be a 50, some intermediate analysis. So we leave this here at 50. The second question is, was the appropriate methodology used? We think that although it was good to use linear regression, it would have been better to use multi-factor linear regression. So we're going to leave this at 50 also. To finish judging, you continue in the same fashion, clicking on the question mark in each category to get guidance. When you finish scoring, if you have any additional comments, we encourage you to write them in the box at the bottom of the scoring form. Neither the scores nor your comments will be shared with the teams. You may want to go back at this point and tweak some of the scores, or you may want to do that after you've judged everything that you're going to judge. When you're finished judging, it's very important that you submit the poster for evaluation. So just click on the submit button and your judging will automatically be submitted. Thank you so much for your effort and time. The DataJam really is grateful to you.